Welcome to the Green Zone Talks. This is the February Green Zone Talk, brought to you by Image Wealth Management LLC, affectionately known as Image Wealth. At Image Wealth, we teach our clients tools to help them manage their emotions and present the best version of themselves, especially when they are under pressure. So, what is a green zone? I get this question a lot, so I like to take a moment to tell everybody what exactly it is. Well, just like when we were children, we created spaces that were fun and welcoming for everyone. The space felt good. It was healthy. It was invigorating. The green zone is that same space. The green zone is a safe and non-judgmental free space, or a free judgment-free space, which we refer to as a zone. You can create an emotionally intelligent green zone alone or with others. Today, our hope is that we will create it with you, that you will learn how to create this space, and you will create these same types of spaces in your home, in your businesses, in your community. And what is required is for all of us to agree that even if we don't agree with what's being said, we will be respectful of what's being said. We will remain friendly. We will engage. And most of all, we will do our best to refrain from judging others. Your comments are welcome. Please put them in the chat. As we move pretty quickly through this hour, it tends to move pretty swiftly. Today, we want to remind you of the ways that we create green zones in our company, which is through our training and coaching, where we create that space for the people who are learning with us. We also create it in our green zone community, which is a virtual community in which you can subscribe, learn, practice, and improve your emotional intelligence with others and learn from others. And then we create it by giving our monthly Green Zone Talks, since we are advocates for bringing more emotional intelligence training into the schools, into businesses, and into our communities. We have created these free Green Zone Talks as one of our ways to spread the word about emotional intelligence. This month and all the months following, we are adding to our Green Zone Talk something called our Green Zone Small Business Greenlight, where we spotlight a small business in our community. And today we are fortunate to have Miss Felicia Watlington, who is representing her business, She Fire Fitness. So Felicia, you have 30 seconds to tell the audience why, if they are not supporting She Fire Fitness, they are losing out. Take it away.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much, Mick, for having me. I'm real excited to be here and support the Green Zone. I love everything about emotional intelligence. It's something that I use in my business. My business is She Fire Fitness. I am the Girl Get Your Sexy Back fitness and nutrition coach, helping primetime women move with power and God-given purpose throughout life. My vision is that women start and sustain a fitness journey for life that helps them and helps their communities and helps their families. So that's what I'm all about. The results that my clients enjoy, including busy professional women, empty nesters, and retirees, people that are kind of starting menopause, trying to get through menopause, done with menopause. I help them with their specific health and wellness goals, including getting fit, getting toned, losing fat, having more energy, and feeling sexy and full of a zest for life. So I do offer online fitness. I am actually located in Raleigh, but I have clients all over. So I offer online fitness and nutrition coaching, as well as in person, obviously here in Raleigh. I have a signature total body transformation program, which includes mindset and emotional intelligence aspects, but things like nutrition and movement and accountability. And that's designed for women that are really ready to get things going. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Nick.
Thank you, Felicia. And I know that there's somebody out there today that's saying, you know, I've been putting it off and I'm going to get it done. And they're going to reach out to you. How do people reach you?
They can reach me online at FeliciaWatlington.com. That's my first and last name. I know that's a mouthful. Felicia. I'll put it in the chat. That might make more sense.
That's great.
I'm also on Instagram at Felicia She Fire Fitness, and I'm also on Facebook. And I'll just put it all in the chat because it's kind of a mouthful of stuff to be sharing. So, but again, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Well done. And so if you would like your business to be in our green light, or if you're interested in being a sponsor, a speaker, or if you have a great idea for a topic or event for us, please go to imagewealth.com, click on the Contact Us tab, and then drop us a message in the box. Just a reminder, for the next Green Zone, we will be having in March Miss Denisha Harris, who is the purchasing and contracts manager for the town of Cary. So if you're a small business out there and you are looking to do business with the government, Denisha really understands that process. She's passionate about that and has helped hundreds of people become vendors for various different aspects of government. So you won't want to miss that talk. She's going to talk about how to use emotional intelligence in that process of dealing with the government. I think we could probably use that. And so, without further ado, we have our special guest speaker. He's very special to me. I have mad respect for this gentleman. He is a newly elected Mecklenburg County Board of Commissioner, I call him Sir Arthur Griffin. And I call him that because I know that if we were in England, he would be knighted with all of the things that he has accomplished and done for others. So he deserves the title of knight. And so I call him Sir Arthur Griffin. Sir Griffin, in 2022, retired as the Senior Vice President for McGraw-Hill Education in New York, where he led a national business development team collaborating with school superintendents. In 2014, he was responsible for achieving, get this, a $670 million revenue target at 101%. So he exceeded the expectations. We are so glad and lucky to have him here with us. He served 17 years on the Charlotte Mecklenburg School Board prior to that, and he was chairman from 1997 to 2002. He's been a guest lecturer as well as a teacher in Harvard University's Graduate School, a faculty member at the Broad University of Virginia. I'm telling you, this resume is so impressive. It goes on, and I am just honored to have him as our guest. He is nationally recognized in the public school governance, and he has, for 20 years, he has worked in litigation as a paralegal in the legal services at Southern Piedmont as well. And I believe also he's a retired military officer. Is that correct, Sir Arthur Griffin?
That is correct. Retired as a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army.
United States Army. So we know you know about discipline. We know you know about emotions and managing your emotions from all of that and working in the public sector and in the school system and all of that with parents. So we are really looking forward to jumping into this conversation. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself. Thank you. So today we are going to talk about 5 steps for regulating your emotions during difficult and political conversations. Prior to today, we had an opportunity to talk about this topic. It was a lot. We discovered between the two of us that there were a lot of things that we did, and to narrow it down to 5 steps could be a lot, but we were successful in doing that. And I'm going to read from our notes so that we can make sure we cover everything for the audience. Is that okay with you, Mr. Griffin?
That's absolutely fine.
All right. So
I may challenge your earlier assertions, though. My wife thinks I've lost my emotional and IQ for getting back out there in politics. So.
And I know that, and I tell you, that's a whole different topic that we could cover is people who support people in these political roles. It has to take a great deal of patience and emotional intelligence to be supportive in this role. But I heard that she is really good at supporting you. And if you don't get it done, something done this time, that's it. And so, no, I'm kidding. I know you're going to get, what you put your mind to, because you always do accomplish your goals. So we thank her for her support. Number one, we talked about intention. So when we're getting ready to have these difficult political conversations, and remember, it's easy to have emotional intelligence when you agree, right? When you see the world the same way. Then emotions are kind of, good. They're happy. They're easy to manage. But it's when we get into difficult conversations with people who see the world differently that emotional intelligence can sometimes be a challenge. And so we talked about intention, and my word was intention. And I said, understanding what your reason for having this conversation is to begin with. And you said your word was outcome. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, certainly, I think in any relationship, there is a sense of what you hope the outcome will be, whether it's a personal relationship, a political relationship, an employment relationship. You really start off with trying to figure out where am I going? A romantic, an emotional relationship. You start off with the end in mind.
They didn't recognize Middleton.
Excuse me, Sir Arthur. If you are not speaking, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you start off with the end in mind. That has been my experience and expectations in any relationship, whether it's just a conversation, good morning, with the end in mind, trying to make sure that the person you are greeting feels the love and warmth, or if it's a political conversation, that you have some idea of where you want to end up. And so for me, the intentionality is around trying to learn something as you have a conversation, or the intentionality of really listening with a keen ear. I often tell people, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And that reason is to make sure as you engage that you pay particular attention to what the other person or other persons are saying in that conversation. And the final intention, because of with the end in mind, would be what do I intend to learn from this interaction? Verbal conversation, this interaction, physical conversation. You continue to want to be able to say and keep in front of you as you are exchanging ideas verbally, what the end in mind is. You started off earlier. Sometimes you agree and you disagree, but you're looking for opportunities. At least that's my perspective. You're looking for opportunities of where you do agree, so that it's not just a one-sided, look what I'm gaining from this conversation, but also what the other person is gaining from that conversation, so that they are coming away with some sense that it's a positive experience for the other person as well.
Yes, and finding something that you can accept also, even if it's that you don't agree. So I think sometimes when we get in these conversations and we don't agree from each other's perspectives, one of the things that we can look to do is to agree to disagree, or to accept that we're not going to change the other person's mind. So when I talk about intention, if your intention really is to learn, when you go into this conversation, you're probably going to have a better chance of managing your emotions around it. But if your intention is to convince this other person to see your point of view, there's going to be some turbulent water there.
What I usually do, Mick, in terms of just simply having a conversation with my grandkids, or other adults. It's their truth. I'm not there to change their truth. You want to respect their truth. Their truth may be somewhat different, but I'm very respectful of their truth in terms of their being. So certainly there are opportunities where there may be some different perspective. I wouldn't necessarily say that it's right or wrong, but a different perspective. But I'm very respectful of their truth. So the intention there is to have a successful interaction, but not necessarily one where you're trying to take someone else's truth away from you.
Excellent. Step 2, presence. What I mean by presence is giving them your full attention. And I think oftentimes when we're talking to people today, we're distracted. We're taught to multitask. This is a society now of multitasking. And to be able to detach from all that other noise and give someone your full attention so you can listen and learn from them is a great skill and is very challenging for some people. Being alert to their responses in body language. Can you talk to us about that?
Well, certainly, two things. With respect to being present, I'm sort of from the old school, and I can recall growing up as a child, you often were told about eye contact. Now, certainly as I matured and was older and understood that eye contact meant different things to different cultures, but the concept there earlier on was to be present. And there was a physical sign of, okay, you see me, I see you. There's a sense that I'm engaged. I'm present in this relationship, because it not only is a positive tool, but it also says, I value you and you value me by being present in this conversation. And in verbal language and nonverbal language, the challenges today, Mick, and you certainly indicated the principal challenge with technology and this digital world that we're in, and multitasking, as you talked about earlier. We're so damn busy sometimes that we forget about the value in being present in a conversation. And when you stop and just take a moment, take off all of the hustle and bustle of your being for that moment, be present with that person that's sitting across the table from you. Be present with that person that's on the phone. Try to detach that digital world. And we all have these iPhones, cell phones, technology. I'm probably the worst with technology, but still you become a slave to your little iPhone every time it beeps. So try to make sure that you're present in your conversations, and make sure that the other person, if it's a one-on-one or a group or something, can feel that presence in a way that they accept that as being valued. I was just tremendously taken aback sometimes when you just stop and just say, hey, tell me what's going on. I have plenty of time. I'm yours, okay? Sometimes I don't practice all of that to the best, because I say, I'm yours for the next hour. And so with this program, I'm yours until the next hour, Mick. But I think it's so important to be present, because it creates a value proposition with the other person. And once they feel that you value them as a person or a being, chances are greater success in that relationship, whatever that relationship happens to be, whether it's personal, business, etc.
Yes, and I recall that you talked about sensing, that when in the political world, it's important to be able to tap into all your senses and sense where a person's coming from, what they're passionate about. And I can see where that would help us to manage our emotions if we have a sense of where they're coming from.
Well, absolutely. In the political world, you oftentimes would get calls from constituents and citizens that are in a crisis. Or you'd meet people on the street that are experiencing some challenges. And you can get a sense from that interaction on the phone or in person that there's potential anger, some confusion, a sense of joy or happiness. But you have to have like your sensing meter on to try to get an understanding that make sure that you are communicating and receiving people from where they are and not necessarily from where you want them to be. I mean, it's verbal communications, it's nonverbal communication. You look at body language, you look at facial expression to get some sense. I mean, you've heard the word or term poker face. People are trying to, not have an expression. So there's always this sensing meter going on in my world where I'm trying to get a good sense for this person's body language, facial expressions, utterances. Give you an example, just simply the tone of your voice during a conversation sometimes can give you an indication that there may be some degree of distress. And so what you want to do is try to read that as best you can so that your language and how you receive an individual will make the conversation or the relationship a positive one, or one where they are getting their needs met, and you're getting your needs met. You go back to that first step of what's the intention, what's the outcome. And certainly sensing is a critical part for me as it relates to trying to be successful in a relationship.
And that kind of leads us into our number 3, which was breath work. So in part of that sensing where someone else is coming from, what's going on with them, their tone, their body language, that sensing becomes important in emotional intelligence when you are looking or directing that presence towards yourself. A lot of times when someone is triggering us or there's a conversation we disagree with, we can feel it. Our heart starts to beat fast. Maybe our tone gets higher. We start talking faster. Our heartbeat speeds up, and we start breathing more rapidly. So if we're paying attention to that and we understand that breathing can calm us down, then we can start getting into this deep breathing and regular breathing exercise, which we teach in our classes all the time. But this breath work to try and allow space, right? Space in between the conversation. Talk to us about that pregnant pause. I think you called it analyzing, time to analyze the situation.
Well, that's I need to take some of your classes because sometimes I might be guilty of not taking that pregnant pause, as folks used to call it back in the day. But it's a critical piece of interaction with others. Is just slow down a little bit so that you can understand, paraphrase if you need, in terms of, give feedback, or just take just a moment to receive the information, paraphrase it, give it back in such a way that you truly understand what's being said or what's being expected from you during that relationship. Sometimes, and my wife tells me this all the time, slow down. Did you hear this? Did you hear me? And it's from a loving perspective, but the intentionality of receiving information requires us oftentimes to slow down, to take what we passionately call the pregnant pause, but to kind of just take the information. Some folk from different parts of the world, their language patterns are very rapid. From different cultures, their language patterns are very rapid, but still it requires us to pause for a moment. That also sends a signal, Mick, I believe, to the other person that you're really trying to understand me before you're reacting. Sometimes we answer questions before we get full understanding of what the questions are. And so really taking that pause shares a value that you're trying to understand me, and I'm trying to be able to respond to you in a way that conveys to you that I value our interaction, I value our conversation. Now, I haven't been up, Nick, I'll be honest with you. Sometimes I have to come to your class and go to other classes on taking this pregnant pause, particularly in the political world. And sometimes you don't get a lot of chances to pause. It's rapid fire communications, it's a rapid fire environment, and it doesn't always lend itself to that pregnant pause that should occur. And so when I can practice that, practice that.
Okay, so let's pause for a minute and go over the 3 steps we've already covered. One was intention/outcome. Know what your intentions are going in and what outcome you would like to have in these tough conversations. 2 was presence, giving your full intention and responding and looking for body language. 3, and also with that is sensing other people and where they're coming from. 3 is breath work, being able to breathe and calm yourself down. It takes, for some, a lot of self-control. So that leads us into the tough part. I think it's the tougher part. Number 4, which is setting the stage for the outcome. We talked about task versus relationship, understanding the difference between those two and the win-win-win-lose scenarios. Can you talk to us about that?
I can't, remember the time period when I learned this little idiom about win-lose, win-win, lose-win, lose-lose. But it's a relationship between the activity or task that you are attempting to achieve and your interpersonal relationship with the person or the organization that transaction is occurring. And probably in the 80s, I don't even remember now, but it's always been embedded in my existence, is to try to always come away with a win-win situation. And that is to win the task or the activity, but also win the relationship. And certainly we practice that in significant others, the husband, the wife, the girlfriend, the boyfriend, the employer, the employee, the business owner and the customer. We practice it, all the time, but sometimes we don't realize that we're practicing that. And what I mean by that, in the personal relationship, sometimes you may not win the argument or the task or the activity, but the relationship is so important to you that you do those things to maintain the relationship, whether it's your significant other or your spouse, your husband or your wife, taking out the garage or not putting the cap back on the toothpaste may not be a winning task or a losing task, but you do that because you want to win in that relationship with that spouse. And we practice that without really knowing that. But in business and in politics, you sometimes come to the table with the same type of reaction. Is this a vote that will move us forward? Is it so important that this vote will destroy our relationship, as an organization? And so you just have to weigh those factors. It's always best to try to come away with a win-win, where you put the toothpaste cap back on the toothpaste, your significant other is happy. That is a win-win situation. Not all the time you want to come away with, I won the task, but I lost the relationship. What I mean by that, I'll give you an example. If I'm on a board of county commissioners today, and there are 9 of us, it takes 5 votes to succeed or win or move us forward. And as a leader, you want to try to, and I learned this in the military also, you want to do your very best not to have a lot of 5-4 votes, because you don't want to have almost half of your board or half of your board losing, and also you're losing that relationship with people that you're going to need on another issue or another strategy coming up this year, next year, or another budget item. So you try to work with your colleagues to try to find, at least if you can't get a 9-0 vote, you get a substantial majority so that your organization is moving in the same direction. It's almost like rowing a rowboat. And let's say half of your oars are in the water going in one direction, and the other half is going in a different direction. Your organization is not going to go very far. So you want to try to make sure that your relationships are really key. What you don't want to experience, and definitely you don't want to experience it often, is when there is a lose-lose proposition. And that is to say, I lost the particular task, and I also lost my relationship. That is not the best outcome that you'd be looking for in that relationship. And I think, Mick, you can use this scenario. I've used it in the military. I've used it in war. I've used it in my personal relationships. I try to use it in my political experiences to make sure that if there are situations where we didn't succeed on the task, that we maintain that relationship so that we can continue to be successful at other opportunities as we would go down the road. So I hope that makes sense. If it didn't make sense, we'll try again. But I believe in that scenario where you want to try to win whatever the task is, but you also want to try to maintain and have a successful relationship.
I remember you sharing a story with me about this in the 2000 school vote, and you were, I guess, voting on something where you were the only one. You were the one vote in this 8-1 vote, and you felt very strongly about your position. But in the end, even though you lost the vote, you decided to work hard for the other side to make sure that the decision that was reached was successful. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. Felicia reminded me of that when she said she lived in Charlotte doing the controversial busing stuff, going back and forth to federal court. We had to make a decision. It was a very tough decision in about the year of 2000. And we had to make a choice. For a number of months, we were wrestling, going back and forth to federal court, trying to present to the court what we felt was our position, that we had not eliminated all the vestiges of a segregated school system, and we needed a little bit more time to really create a unitary school district. And the board, there are 9 members of school board, 9 members on the Board of Education, and we wrestled with that. Occasionally there were 5-4 votes. Some of the votes I just talked to you about that you tried to avoid. But the issues were so profound, the issues were laden with history, laden with where we thought we'd want to be in the future. And so we continued to have some split votes. But as we were trying to figure out how to go forward, what the future would be, there was a proposition called school choice. And we had to make a tough decision. And the colleagues on that board, I had the best of relationship with all of them, Black, white, men, women. And because we had worked so hard to move the district forward and had a number of phenomenal successes of being national newspapers is making a huge difference. Time Magazine, U.S. News and World Report. National recognition as one of the top urban educated school system in the country. We've done a lot of good work as a school district. We knew we had a lot of work to do because we weren't satisfied with where we were located. But there was a vote after creating a policy on equity about moving forward with a pupil assignment plan called choice, or open choice. And we had come to a point where it was time to make a decision. And we made that decision, and it was a heartfelt decision. I mean, each member really poured their souls out during that board meeting, in conversation about where they were, where we are now, where we hope to be. And I respected all of those decisions. But being able to support that decision to move forward, I just could not do it at that point because of my experiences here in Mecklenburg County, growing up here in Mecklenburg County. And I just could not do that. And so we voted, and the vote was 8-1. It was a 9-member school board. I chaired the Board of Education at the time. And I was the one vote that voted against or different from the other 8 members of the board. And that was probably that was one of the most nerve-wracking votes that I've taken as an elected official to do that. But I promised my colleagues on the board, after taking that one vote, that I'd do every damn thing in my power to make sure that we were successful as a school system. And I don't recall whether it was 2000 or 2001. I didn't leave the school board in 2003. But I did everything I could do from the time remaining to make sure that that second piece of win-win, lose-win, that we work together as a Board of Education to do our very best for the kids in this community. So that's one example. I could give you a number of examples, but the most poignant example I can give you would be that one where I was on the end of not being in the majority, but as a result of that, our relationship on the win side maintained, and each of those folk that was on the other side, I work with them today. I love them today, and I value their experience as the Board of Education.
And I wanted you to share that. Thank you so much, that story, because I think it's important for us to realize that what really matters is relationships. And in relationships, you're not going to always agree. But if you are the person who is outvoted, and you can be big enough, we call it being big enough, to support the other side once the vote is done for the greater cause or the greater good. That is emotional intelligence. That's a true example of being highly emotionally intelligent. A lot of people would take their ball and go home, right? Or sit in the corner and pout. So to be able to say, hey, I lost the vote, but the relationships are important to me and I'm going to support you all and work with you on this, to me is everything that we're talking about. I also want to say that we talked briefly about the new generation or the younger generations and how this art of negotiation and the understanding of the importance of maintaining relationships, even if you are the one vote out, is kind of a lost art. People wanting instant gratification, people wanting what they see as being the truth to be the winning vote, and then not being able to manage their emotions enough to support the other side so that everyone wins and then your turn will come around. So I think there's some work to be done. We certainly don't have time today on this call. I'd love to have that conversation about how we bring the younger generations on board to learn respectful negotiation and political conversations. But I did want to put it out there since we did talk about the younger generations and the art of negotiating.
But that's what, if I can, Mick, just to follow up. Again, growing up here in Charlotte, I can recall my 7th grade teacher. I can recall Bertha Maxwell, the elementary school teacher, always used the term deferred gratification. And that phrase just stuck with me. And while they were trying to beat it into my little young brain back in the day of, it's coming, but understand and how to respond and receive some deferment, that it's not going to be instantaneous. We've sort of lost that art of sharing that with our younger generation of what the old people used to say was deferred gratification. I don't know what the young people call it today, but those are the skill sets you learn, believe it or not, in preschool. Taking your turn, taking your place in line, etc., are all many steps to adulthood in terms of learning that art of deferred gratification. And I think that the skills, the knowledge and skill sets are out there. We just have to figure out how to use today's communications, this digital, iPhone, all this stuff, to share with people that, hey, you're going to get your reward. You're moving in the right direction. Just understand that there are several steps that it takes before you get there, and appreciate the fact that there are several steps to get there. In some events, it's easier to accept. For example, rarely do you start at the 1 yard line and go all the way for 100 yards to win a touchdown. There is acceptance that, it's going to take a series of first downs for you to score a touchdown. So the evidence is out there today. We just have to figure out how to convert the deferred gratification language to some of the actual activities that are occurring today to give more examples to our younger generation that it's something that we participate in each and every day. We just have to convert it to the more conventional sense in terms of my job, my next promotion, my next win, whether it's political win or relationship in a community or relationship with an individual person. Clearly, Felicia talked about getting your sex back on women. I was just saying, well, whatever happened to the men? I mean, does Felicia do anything with men? So we just have to, I'm deferring Felicia to a time where I need to get my sexy on too, not just the ladies, as you said earlier.
Well, I'm sure if you really wanted to get your sexy back on, if Felicia had an opening, she'd be more than happy to work with you. So there's that. So we are talking about the 5 steps to regulating your emotions during difficult political conversations. We have step 1, intention, step 2, presence, step 3, breath work, step 4, setting the stage for an outcome. And then there's step 5, which is avoiding confrontation. And we kind of touched on that already. But I wanted to make a point of something we both agreed on, that asking questions rather than stating your opinion, but asking good questions and being mindful of the type of questions becomes very important when you're trying to avoid a confrontation. And you said something very clever that I wanted to share with the audience. You said, sometimes I'm good at it. This is about confrontation now. Sometimes I'm not so good at it. And sometimes I don't intend to be good at it. Can you talk to us about that and also share your example of Mr. Bush?
Well, I'll certainly start off with Tom Bush. Tom Bush was a chairman, white Republican chairman of the Mecklenburg County Board of County Commission, where I currently serve as a member. And I recall the debates back in the day when we were talking about trying to get resources for our public schools. And the confrontation was, we can't give the schools any more money. We don't have enough money. We can't give the schools any more money. And that was always contentious, whether it was a Republican-led county commission or Democratic-led county commission. And, you know, you had a choice. You can go in and you know, fight the feeling and talk about, you know, why can't you give us more money? You don't want to provide support for public schools. Or you can take a different approach. We took a different approach. We needed more funds for advanced placement classes here in Mecklenburg County. And we had the idea of 2 crates. We had 1 crate of regular textbooks that the state of North Carolina would pay for. I think the state of North Carolina paid $40 a textbook. I don't remember the exact fee, but it was like $40 a textbook and $35. And we wanted to expand our advanced placement. And back then, the advanced placement textbooks cost $125. And so we had the bright idea of taking 2 different crates of textbooks to the Board of County Commission meeting and putting them on the table and indicating that the public wanted more access. And what I meant by the public, white families, white students, black families, black students, Hispanics, everybody wanted access to advanced placement. And it was very obvious. It was a great visual of the crate of regular textbooks versus the crate of advanced placement textbooks. And because of making a compelling argument of what was good for the entire community, it wasn't about, you know, raising taxes or having more money or less money. What's the value proposition? It was a visual. And as a result of that, we were able to get, I don't know, what was $10 million more for that. But we got enough money, not only to fund our initial foray into advanced placement for all of our high schools, but also We had money to establish a summer institute out at UNCC Charlotte. And that summer institute is going right to this day in collaboration with the College Board. So that was a success. But what really capped it off, Mick, more so than anything else, at one point, Tom Bush and I stood out in front of the dais area, and we were shaking hands. So here is a black chair of the school board and a white Republican chair of the Board of County Commission had really come to a positive end or agreement on behalf of children in the school district. So rather than being confrontational, we figured out how to have a compelling presentation that got both of us moving in the same direction. Now, that was a positive outcome. Now, on some occasions, as you mentioned, and this is I'm still a work in progress. Understand that. God's not finished with me yet. But as we talk about upward mobility, income, wealth inequality in America or here in Mecklenburg County, I'm really passionate about that. And as I have conversations with people locally about that, sometimes I manage my passion well, and sometimes I don't manage my passion very well, particularly when there are just any number of opportunities that we could seize upon to address that fundamental problem of income and wealth inequality. You know, we've been working on this thing called income equality for a long time. Every decade or two, we come up with a report or research or a book, and this community just jumps over backwards talking about upward mobility. And there's so many opportunities for that to occur. I forget my emotional intelligence and really need the workshop and sometimes kind of like a bull in a china shop. And that's not productive because you don't always end up maintaining your friendships and your relationship with others. But that is an issue where I see an absolute win-win opportunity if we can get the political will going at the same time. Look, and I'll give you an example. We often give incentives for corporations coming into Mecklenburg County. Mecklenburg County is a well-off community. And what I mean by incentives, we will provide money to Atrium, we'll provide money to Albemarle Corporation, various Honeywell, to move into Mecklenburg County. But there's no relationship between Honeywell or Atrium in using our workforce development graduates across the board as getting first dibs on those wonderful living wage jobs. And so to simply put a paragraph or just 4 sentences in an incentive contract with people coming in is a simple way, but a practical way of starting to close those gaps. We talk about MWBE, for example, but yet as we bring in corporations, we don't have any way of tying those new corporations into, at least as you're building your new $200 million factory, will you embrace the community's values towards MWBE as it relates to building the buildings, the contractors, et cetera. So sometimes I'm successful at it, and sometimes I'm not so successful. And I really need my emotional intelligence when I say I don't intend to be good at it, because I think sometimes we have to let people know that you've scored a touchdown or you didn't score a touchdown. And that may be interpreted as being confrontational. when you let people know that we didn't win this one, or we didn't score a touchdown in trying to.
The goal is to not be confrontational, to set the intention to not be confrontational. And that's the thing about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is not a destination. It is a journey, and it requires practice. And the way you know you're getting better is when you slip up and then you try again and you do it better the next time. So that's the beauty of it. There's a lot of grace in emotional intelligence if you allow it. Now, we are running out of time, and I did want, I asked people to put their questions in the chat, and I did not see any questions. I saw a few comments, and we thank you for those. But if there is a question, and there's a burning question, we probably have time for maybe one quick question. It's 11:57. If anybody has a question that you'd like to ask Sir Arthur, please unmute yourself and go ahead with your question. Well, Sir Arthur, you must have done a phenomenal job, and no one has a question.
I don't know that, but I will tell you this. My return to politics is to try to manage that approach of win-win on something very critical and very passionate, and that is trying to close the income and wealth gap in a community, one of the 60th wealthiest counties in America. There are over 3,000 counties in America. We're in the 60s, upper 60s of being the wealthiest counties in America. And if it's going to happen, we certainly have all the ingredients to make it happen.
Well, since there was not a question, I have a question, and that is, how can we support you in your role? What is it that you would like to see from us as citizens more in the role of what you do and in the way of supporting not just you, but all of our politicians who are out there helping us with our various causes? How can we get involved or help?
Challenge us, keep us accountable. Because I'm African American doesn't mean that I'm going to always do everything correctly or the right way. Challenge me. Hold Arthur Griffin accountable and others, all of your elected officials accountable, particularly when you have a formula in place where that formula in and of itself is not closing the wealth and income gap in a community as well off as Mecklenburg County. So challenge us to be more thoughtful, to be more articulate in terms of outcomes. And that's what I would say, not only for you, for those on this call, but everyone that's living and breathing in Mecklenburg County told us there's tremendous talent in this community. Join commissions and boards. We have a wonderful opportunity here in Mecklenburg County to be a leader in this notion of upward mobility. And I would ask you and others to hold me accountable, but also engage us in this process.
Well, Sir Arthur, we are out of time, and I thank you for so much of yours. I'm honored to have had you. I appreciate the topic and the conversation. I hope that we have given people something to think about, and I look forward to seeing you back in the Green Zone and when you have a minute. So if you all are interested, you can join the Green Zone community, where we will have a full view of this recording there. And we look forward to seeing you in March.
Thank you for having me.